Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. Many people think that old money is soft. It isn't. Having a history gives you power and a presence. Old money is controlled, composed, but dangerous when challenged. Here are 8 fragrances that smell like old money with an edge. Fragrance number 1 is Bulgari Man in Black. And if there was ever a designer house from Italy that was old money, it's Bulgari. It was started in 1884 by a Greek silversmith. He set up shop in Rome. He wanted to create a jewelry store. It was very successful. He then moved it to the Via Condotti, which is now like the main fashion district in Rome. And it was one of the very first shops there. In the 1950s, people like Sophia Loren and Elizabeth Taylor started wearing Bulgari jewelry. In the 70s, it became an international fashion brand. And in the 90s, they started making fragrances. So this was the very first flanker in the Bulgari Man line, which was a minimalist woody line. And it's hard to believe because even though this is very woody, it's got a lot of Gaiac wood, this is not a minimalist fragrance, not to my nose anyway. This is a dark, decadent fragrance. There's a lot of dark notes here, including a very realistic rum note. There's also things like leather. There's tobacco. I mean, it's a very, very dark fragrance. There's a little bit of sweetness and there's some spiciness. But to me, what really makes this special, a couple things I never hear about. It has tuberose and iris in it. Not a huge floral feel, but just enough to give it a little bit of creaminess, a little bit of density that I really like. It's a really good, long-lasting fragrance, definitely very dark, and definitely old money. When it comes to old money, there's usually more than one generation. And if Dior Homme Intense is the iris fragrance of the mature old money line, which I think it is, I mean, Dior Homme Intense is a very sophisticated fragrance, then I think that Valentino Uomo Intense is the old money scent for the younger generation, because even though there's a little bit of sweetness in Dior Homme Intense, it does have ambrette. This has vanilla and tonka, so it's a little bit more modern with the sweetness. It's also a little bit more seductive, which the younger people would tend to prefer. But fundamentally, it is still an iris fragrance line. There's a lot of creamy iris here. But this is an interesting fragrance in a lot of different ways, because if you're one of the people that find that iris, yeah, you like it, but it's a little bit feminine, this would be a good option because there's a lot of leather here. Now, it's a soft leather, but it's still very masculine, definitely very dark. Any fragrance that has this much leather is definitely on the dark side. So yeah, I think it'd be a really good option for a wide variety of people that like iris and maybe they don't like Dior Homme Intense. Another good thing about this is, even though I don't feel on my nose anyway that this lasts quite as long as Dior Homme Intense, it definitely projects more, and that makes it better in seductive situations. So yeah, I think this would be a good option for the old money people who are a little bit younger. Over the last few years, there's no question there's been a move away from more mature, sophisticated fragrances towards sweeter, gourmandy style fragrances as younger people get into fragrances more. However, that's not a universal trend. When it comes to the house of Giorgio Armani, they've made a massive change with their code line in the opposite direction. Their older fragrances came in more casual bottles. They were basically leather and something sweet. They were definitely a little bit gourmandy. But in the early 2020s, they started moving in a more sophisticated direction. They had bottles that looked like this, and then they had fragrances like this, which is Armani Code Parfum, that are more sophisticated, a little bit more old money. And this parfum has iris. That's a definite move in the counter direction to everybody else. And it wasn't just this fragrance that they did that with. They also did the same thing with the Eau de Parfum and the Eau de Toilette. Now this one has a lot of iris. It's got a clary sage note. So to me, it's aromatic and iris. There's also the tonka note, and that's another important difference because all 3 fragrances that are new, not only do they come in this, they call it a squircle bottle because it's coming kind of a square but circle at the same time, but all 3 of them also use tonka. So there's no vanilla anymore. They're just going as sweet as tonka and they're dialing it down. They're making the fragrances a little bit more sophisticated. The Eau de Toilette went with lavender. The Eau de Parfum went with nutmeg. They're definitely smoother, definitely more old money. So yeah, not everything is moving in a gourmandy direction. And for me, that suits me. That's my style. So thank you, Giorgio Armani. Fragrance number 4 is Ombre Nomade by Louis Vuitton, and I'll never forget the first time I tried this. When I smelled it, I was already familiar with oud. I tried a couple of oud fragrances, but when I smelled this, I immediately thought, oh my God, this smells like wealth. It smells like money. Whether it's old money or not, to me, it just smelled wealthy. I did not realize until very recently that this uses real oud oil. In fact, it's Bangladeshi Assam oud oil, which is more expensive than gold. So this really does have expensive ingredients that might help partially at least explain the price, which is astronomical. But not only is it a money fragrance, it's also very, very dark, because this is an oud fragrance. It's a balanced oud. It has a lot of rose and saffron. To me, it's rose heavy, but this also has a lot of incense. Because Jacques that he was new to Louis Vuitton at the time, and what he wanted to do was to have an East meets West kind of fragrance. And seeing as the house is French and he is French, he wanted to give it a Middle Eastern feel and to add incense. Really accomplished that fact. Another clue as to how dark it is, whenever you see a raspberry note, there's a really good chance it's there to break up the darkness, the density of the fragrance. There's a raspberry note here. You definitely get it early on. It dies down a little bit as the fragrance goes on. Incredibly strong fragrance. You're talking about 12 hours at least. Definitely dark, definitely old money. Fragrance number 5, this is an original bottle of Givenchy Gentleman. It's been repackaged and reformulated as Givenchy Gentleman 1974. I've owned that as well. Both fragrances are incredibly similar in the dry down, although there are some differences in the open. But essentially, it's the same thing. Now, the modern fragrance tends to be a little bit more than average in terms of price range, but back when this was released, it was extremely expensive because this had real orris root and real civet, which apparently was extremely expensive back then. Real civet is now illegal to use. I don't know whether the new bottles have real orris root in it, but they're more reasonably priced. Either way, it's a very old money scent. The vibe that I get is British aristocracy, tweed jacket kind of feel. Very masculine scent too. It's going to appeal to more of an older person. There's no question. The notes tend to be more old-fashioned. There's a lot of patchouli here. It came out in the mid-70s. Patchouli was very big at the time. A lot of hippies in patchouli. However, yeah, patchouli, a lot of woods. You're going to get a hint of honey. You're going to get some oak moss, leather, a lot of old-fashioned notes, very masculine. The newer bottles, the performance are really good. I owned a bottle for quite a while. This thing is absolutely fantastic, but either way, the dry downs are very similar. Yeah, definitely dark. With that leather note, with the civet note, definitely dark, and definitely old money. Fragrance number 6 is Velour Boisee. That means velvety woods, from the house of Jacques Fath. And Jacques Fath is not some Johnny-come-lately house. It started in the 1930s in Paris. This is an actual Parfum concentration. It's very strong. And this magnet, very, very strong. I don't know why, but for some reason, FragranceNet are giving them away. I don't think it's a well-known brand, but extremely high quality here. I do only get about 6 hours, even though it is Parfum concentration, but you can tell when you spray it on. It's a very thick juice. So there's no question it is a Parfum. And this, however, is a lot of whiskey. And so normally I would be like, yeah, go and buy it. It's a really good price. But I'm always cautious with whiskey because it's a challenging note for a lot of people. Some people might think, oh, it's just a little boozy. And other people might go, oh, no, that's disgusting. I don't mind it at all. I do prefer it once the boozy note has gone away. To me, it smells like spicy cake after that, like really pleasant. So this gets sweetness from a couple of different ways. One of them is ambroxan done in a sweet way. The other is immortelle, which has like a hay-like kind of feel. So a little bit of sweetness there. You're going to get a lot of spices, including mate tea and a generic spicy note. Then you're going to get the woods. There's sandalwood. There's a lot of gaiac wood here. So very, very pleasant fragrance. But again, I wish I could say go buy it. But yeah, I mean, definitely check out the house. Be careful around this one. That whiskey note early on, that's a strong one. If you're okay with whiskey, grab it. Fragrance number 7 is Al Mukhtalif Signature from the house of Nusuk. I was given this fragrance about 8 months ago for free. So full disclosure, however, I have talked about this. This is the 3rd time since. I don't get paid for extra talking about it. I just really like the fragrance. I think it is a top quality clone. I see it as a clone of Ombre Nomade. Not overall, because it's not like Ombre Nomade in the open. There's no question. This is rose heavy in the open, much more so than Ombre Nomade, and this has no raspberry. But after the first hour, I get a very, very similar vibe, like a sweet dark oud to Ombre Nomade. This is an extrait de parfum. It lasts 10 to 12 hours on my skin. Presentation is really nice. This is a really good magnetic cap. I think it's an excellent clone. And again, I do not get compensated. I just really like this fragrance. And finally, we have Gucci Intense Oud. This is yet another fragrance that is very dark. So dark that there's a raspberry note here to break it up. You always know that you're dealing with darkness with a little bit of an edge when you get that raspberry note. And this is oud and leather. And I think, aside maybe from Nouveau Monde by Louis Vuitton, this is the most animalic oud I've tried. I'm not sure it's a full Middle Eastern oud, but it is certainly close. It's really, really pleasant. It's quite sweet too. But yeah, that raspberry note really helps break it up. I do feel it's really, really high quality. This is one of the fragrances that I like so much that I will just go up and reach and spray it on my hand because I like smelling it. Definitely dark, and I think it's a high quality Gucci scent, so old money for sure. Anyway, yeah, I thought I would do something a little bit different with the sort of sophisticated style, just add a little bit of an edge to it, a little bit of darkness to it today. Hopefully you guys like that. And anyway, yeah, have a good weekend, guys. Take it easy.